a lot of dancing going on over here, and it's mostly not me.
Well, hello.
Hello.
It's the Lady Brain Show with Steph and Lauren, and we have a lovely in-studio guest. Signe Darpinian is a licensed marriage family therapist who specializes in eating disorders. With private practice offices in 2 California locations, she's able to service both the Central Valley region as well as the Bay Area.
Signe is the author of Knockout Dieting, and will be chatting with us about her chapter entitled Here Comes the Bride, and She's Hungry.
Me want food.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Best title for a
here.
chapter ever.
Thank you. Yeah. Please eat. Yeah.
Is the bride hungry because she hasn't eaten for the 3 months before the wedding generally?
You nailed it.
Yeah.
And we all want her to eat.
We want the bride to
It's
eat.
Bridezilla. Yeah.
So why, I mean, there's so much going on in preparing for a wedding, right? Like, what are you going to wear? Who are you inviting? Where are they sitting? You know, is your mother-in-law going to be nice to you? Et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, it's enough to drive you to the freezer for a little caramel core, you know, like suck in that ice cream.
Yes.
And then on top of that, you are also trying to watch your weight, right? So
Exactly.
why the focus on the weight?
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, I can't think of a time in life for women to be more preoccupied with their weight than before their wedding. And some kind of crazy thing happens. Crazy things happen. And actually, I've been interviewing my friends thinking about this. And it's not always the bride. It can sometimes, today I was talking to somebody who actually has bridesmaids that are that obsessed, and the bride is actually feeling pretty well adjusted and okay, you know.
That's
so
interesting.
I think there's so much preoccupation for a lot of reasons, you know. I mean, it's this day that we've been, you know, thinking about since we were little, and the pictures that happen on that day are memorialized like no other pictures in our life,
Right.
You know, I mean, it's and that makes sense, but a lot of what they do, so 2 different things can happen. Either the stress will make them self-soothe with food, like you were just talking about, and you know, there's all this dysregulated emotion because of the craziness, and they'll want to feed that. Or the anxiety about the event coming up will actually make their hunger go underground and make it easier for them not to eat, which isn't good either. So
Right.
neither is ideal.
You know, it's funny because I didn't have a weight issue. I didn't really even need to lose any weight before my wedding 10 years ago. But I decided to just kind of see what I could do with it and maybe drop a couple right before.
Yeah.
And I did. And then I was like, oh man, I look great. So then a few days before the wedding, it was just eating as usual.
yeah.
And I was right back to where I was, which was fine.
Right.
Which was
right.
fine.
Yeah.
But I remember on the actual wedding day itself, you know, there is a certain amount of anxiety, like, are people going to find this a lovely day? Are they going to be happy with the music? Is the food going to be good? And Zach and I hadn't eaten anything all day.
Right.
And we
Yes.
got married at 3:00 in the afternoon. And someone pulled us aside, and she had 2 plates of food. And she's like, you two, sit down and eat.
So smart.
I think people go through the day without doing that.
They do. They do. It is, you know, I have a friend that is a photographer for weddings, and I was asking her what is the most common thing, and she said that. She said, you know, not eating all day. And I think not eating the actual day of the wedding, I'm assuming, doesn't have as much to do with wanting to look thin, which some people are aware of, not wanting to have food in their body when they're in a dress. I mean, I'm not saying that doesn't go on, but I think really it more has to do with just the stress that you were talking about,
Right.
and the anxiety being at its most heightened state, and there is no hunger, really easy to ignore. So you don't eat, and then you drink. You know, and then that's no fun.
And then
So
you fall in the
do.
pool.
So,
Or you flash
yeah.
your guests or something.
Yeah.
you know?
Exactly.
Ooh.
So you would want to eat on that day mechanically. So by that I mean, you know, within the first hour that you wake up, whether you're hungry or not, the food that's the most bang for the buck that you would eat on a normal day, whether you want it or not, you would just eat anyway.
This is the advice that I give people who are getting married all the time, which is not even just the day of, because it didn't actually occur to me there, but if it's a dinner wedding, you know, if it's an evening wedding, you're
yes.
serving your guests dinner, it seems like you just forget to eat because you're going from table to table,
Right.
and so it's just not part of your priorities.
Right.
And I just tell them, make it a priority. Like, you just paid for all this food.
Right.
You know, your friends are all here. Just sit down and enjoy your meal. Like, it's okay.
Right.
Because, you know.
And you want to,
forget.
I mean, not that they would be thinking this, but you want to kind of consider, you know, is my short-term decision to not eat for this whole day going to have a long-term consequence? And of course, yes, it is. Because you're going to, you know, drink with an empty stomach, and that's not good for the next day when you might be traveling and feeling very
Right.
hungover. That's no fun at
yeah.
all.
Getting on
I
a
mean,
plane.
awful.
Yeah.
Can you
Awful.
imagine? Awful. So,
Yeah.
Okay, get some basis in there, some
yes,
stasis.
mechanically.
So how do you get how do you help people that come to you, say in your practice, get more grounded on the day of their wedding, so that they're not, I mean, because it is so easy to just spiral into the stratosphere. That's like the bridezilla, at her finest is the most stressed out, wigged out, woman who's, they get a bad rap, but they have a lot on their mind.
They do.
So how do you come back to
I'm
earth?
just laughing thinking about it because I've been married twice.
Oh.
And I was really young the first time, and one of my best friends who was a bridesmaid told me I was being a snappy bride. And there was a moment, there was a moment. I ate nothing that day. I got completely wasted. I flashed guests.
Nice.
Breasts, flashed them.
Nice.
Isn't that
Okay.
awesome?
Yeah,
One of
that
them was
is.
my first husband's boss.
One of your breasts?
Both of my breasts.
Both.
I thought one of your breasts was your first husband's boss.
Hello, Bill. No, second wedding,
Bum.
no booze at all. Had a lovely meal. Had the time of my life.
Oh, nice.
So, but getting grounded. I mean, it is
Okay. Yeah.
It's tough to do.
It's tough to do. And I have an idea about that. I just got back from a mindfulness conference, so this is really fresh for me, which is good. When it's the actual day of the wedding, most people are typically over-engaged by emotion, meaning that that's on a good time to, for the first time, try a mindfulness or a grounding technique. And so the key would be that would, because you're more sort of in crisis.
I'm going to try this now.
Yeah, exactly. That would not work at all. So what I have people do when I'm teaching the skill set of mindfulness, it works the best, of course, when they're not at all in crisis. So I think practicing it ahead of time for some months prior would be key, because if you're in the habit of practicing mindfulness, when you're not in crisis, you're going to be much more able to generalize that skill set to a situation like a wedding.
Right. And then when you go and have a baby in a few years, if you choose to have children, you can use it again.
Right.
Or you can just throw
room.
the mindfulness all directly out the window.
Right.
When the kids arrive, you're like, why did I even think a plan was going to work in this instance? But
Right.
can you give an example?
I can give an example.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So what I was thinking about too is when you're planning a wedding for the months prior to the wedding, and I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm assuming that most people don't have a wedding planner. I think that's fair to say.
Sure.
So
I
let's
did not.
say,
I didn't.
I mean, I would think most people don't. And so you're doing a lot of the planning on your own. You're working. Maybe you already have kids. I mean, who knows what the situation is, but it's a pretty fragmented state, and by fragmented, I just mean, naturally little bits and pieces of you are everywhere. And so what would be key, and I think, I always think of doing what works instead of what's right. So let's be real. I mean, during the months before the big event, you're not going to have time maybe to go to yoga 2 times a week, which would be ideal, 2 or 3 times a week. It's not going to work. So I call it, I talk about doing drive-through spirituality.
Okay. Tell us how you do that.
So drive-through really just takes a snap of a finger, and it's doing something maybe a few times a day. And you could even do, so when you come home at night, I mean, I know most of us have dishwashers, but pretend that you don't. You could even do, mundane activities like washing the dishes mindfully. So instead of using the time to wash the dishes mindlessly, for example, or chopping veggies, or, when you're making your meal, and designating that time. Like, I'm not going to worry about the future. I'm not going to worry about tomorrow because it hasn't happened yet, or I'm not going to freak out about my day. This is designated time that I'm going to quiet my mind and pay attention to one dish at a time. So you can practice quieting the mind so that you get used to the discipline, and it's a lot easier to do. It'll transfer other places, and you can use it while you're doing mundane activities like dishwashing, chopping veggies.
I can totally see that.
Or you could even, I know this one sounds really silly, but it's actually pretty amazing if we remember to do it. Just even taking time to just step outside and close your eyes and just listen to the sounds of nature, whatever is outside your window. Just little things like that just take a second, and doing them a few times a day make a really big difference.
All
over
right.
time.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to chat some more with Signe Darpinian, licensed family therapist specializing in eating disorders. But we're going to talk about the big day when we get back, so stick around.
It doesn't matter what you say, wishing for all we could have been.
Hi, this is Kevin Nealon, and you're listening to The Lady Brain Show with Steph and Lauren. Oh, my goodness.
God, we're lucky girls, right?
Right.
Okay. We're back, and we're talking with Signe Darpinian, licensed family therapist, about weight and weddings. We've talked about preparing for the wedding, and now we want to talk about the big day itself. Signe.
So what suggestions do you have for preventing feeling overwhelmed the day of the wedding? You know, so we've talked about the mindfulness. You're probably not going to take a moment to wash the dishes or go outside and smell the fresh air. Is there anything quicker than a snap that you can recommend? So it's the day of.
Okay,
Prepare.
the day of. So what I would suggest the day of, well, let me back up a little bit. There's one other technique you can
Yes.
do while you're actually driving the car that would actually help for the day of.
Okay.
So I call it setting your intent for the event. Okay, so setting your intent for the event means that ideally, say it's 2 weeks prior. People say that it takes a couple weeks to do this. There's no real way to measure that, but whatever. So setting your intent for the event means that you are diligently, creating, like when you were driving to work, for example, you're designating a certain period of time during the day, maybe on your way to work, where you're thinking and imagining how good the day is going to go. Okay, so instead of the worries about what could possibly go wrong, the weather and the in-laws and the seating and people, that have conflict with each other. And so you're spending time, you're making a concerted effort, spending some time thinking about how good it could possibly go, how you want your guests to feel when they're there, how you want to feel when you're there. Imagine being present and getting to say hi to everybody and just cherishing every moment. So the idea is, and actually in the therapy that I use, they use a different term, coping ahead of time. And there's actually research that proves that the more time you spend thinking about how well it's going to go, the better the chances that it actually goes that way. Okay,
Ooh,
so just
okay.
spend time thinking about how you want to feel with your guests and at your wedding, and how you want them to feel, and just thinking about how good it could possibly go.
Now, how do you differentiate between having coping ahead and it going well and setting your expectations so high that nothing that day possibly lives up to what you imagine?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. So you spend time thinking about how good it could possibly go because worrying, I heard this quote one time, somebody said worrying is like praying for something that you don't want.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's a waste of energy.
It is.
It's really an illusion. It's a waste of energy. And so coping ahead of time or setting the intent for the event, it feels better to think better feeling thoughts, and it'll improve your mood, make you more
Totally.
balanced. And if you're more balanced ahead of time, if you do these techniques ahead of time, it will increase the likelihood that you'll be able to be more grounded and present when you're actually there.
Gotcha.
So you're imagining how good it goes, and then say that you get there and something is not going so well, okay? You want to make sure that you have like a little mantra or a little affirmation, something that resonates really specifically with you. And you would also, I think this would be hard to do in practice, but in theory it sounds pretty good. Remembering that you can take little breaks, like, excuse me, I'm going to go use the restroom. And you can go do your grounding techniques, like whatever it is. It's kind of cheesy to say affirmations. They're just
I don't
kind of,
think
there's
it's
no way to make
cheesy.
them cool. But something that just kind of makes you surrender, like all is as it should be, or nothing is ever as bad as it seems. Whatever it is.
Or you know what my husband and I said to each other, as long as people have food to eat and people to hang out with, really, like, what else is there that's important? You know
Right,
what I mean?
right,
Like,
yeah.
we're all together. We're here. Wasn't that a fun day?
It was a fun
You
day.
were
I was
there.
there.
Yeah, we
I
had
was
a
there. I was
blast.
pushing my little
You had
baby
your
in
little
her
baby
stroller.
We had a little bluegrass band. But the thing is, you just like, if you don't have ridiculous, out of control expectations too, because
Right,
another thing
right.
that somebody said to me once, in the line of worrying is like praying for something bad to happen. Expectations are planned disappointments.
Right,
You heard
it has
that
a
one?
slingshot effect.
Yes, it does.
It really does. And so, yes, thinking about how good it could possibly go in a reasonable way.
In a reasonable
in
way,
a
right.
reasonable way. In a
Like,
reasonable way.
yes.
Just having nice thoughts
People
about it.
show up, it's
because
good, everybody's in a
worrying
good mood.
about how it could go. It's just a waste of time anyway.
No, I think it's
and
awesome.
then just remembering to take little breaks, go to the restroom, and do your little grounding techniques.
Connect with your partner.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Now, what about advice for the groom?
Okay, for the groom.
Yeah, what can he do to make this day go smoothly? Because a lot, I don't want to stereotype, but frequently the wedding planning does fall on the shoulders
Sure,
of the bride,
sure,
right?
right.
So now the groom just shows up. Like, does all he have to do is just show up with his stuff, his what he's going to wear, his shoes, change of clothes? Like,
ring.
what role can he play? The ring.
The ring.
Yeah,
Outside of that.
The thing that comes up the most in my caseload, and not just with my caseload, with family and friends also, I know in the days up to the the body image preoccupation gets pretty intense, understandably, and there seems to always be a significant increase in the "do I look fat?"
Yes. So how does he
do I
answer
look
that?
fat? Do I look fat? So how he answers it, I always tell when I have couples come in. We always talk about having a rule. It doesn't go over very well typically, but over time it does. And to my advice to the groom, as far as do I look fat questions, would be the best way to win that game is to not play.
Right.
You know, so
what does
there's
that mean?
there's no win. And so if you do go the whole, no, you don't look fat. I mean, if you're constantly validating in that regard, then it's just going to keep getting asked over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're counting on somebody outside of you to make you feel good, then it's going to stay there.
Right.
And so it's a little bit, it doesn't go over very well in the beginning, but eventually the do I look fat thoughts subside.
You just quit asking, right?
You just quit asking.
But
It's frustrating at first, but then you quit asking.
So the guy says, "I'm not going to answer that."
You know the role. I'm not going to answer that, or you could say. I can't imagine a guy saying this, but you could say, because typically it's sort of interesting. You can obviously be the same weight one day that you are the next day, and suddenly but one day you're having I feel fat thoughts
Right.
when you're the same weight. So
Right.
it's clearly about something else. We call it the anatomy of a fat thought. And so he could also say, if it wasn't about the feeling fat, what would it be about? Try to get it more to the feeling.
Yeah.
When I suspect that the weight is the same. But I don't think that would go over very well either.
No.
It's a
That's
tough one. It's a really tough one.
Silence
But
is golden in this
I
one.
think
in
silence
this
is
case,
golden.
I think.
Yeah, if she's aware of what he's up to and being silent.
Yeah, you really can't win. Even if you said, "I love you," no matter
can't-
what you
yeah,
look like,
you
then you're
can't-
like, "But then you do
right.
think I look fat." Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good luck to the guys on that.
Right.
All right. Well, Signe, thanks for coming in and
Thank
talking
you
with us
so
about
much
this topic.
for having me, Lauren and
Wedding
Steph.
season.
Great to see you.
So fun.
All right. We'll see you next time. Absolutely.
thanks a
All right.
lot.
Signe Darpinian is a licensed family therapist who specializes in eating disorders. All of our interviews are available online. You can find them at theladybrainshow.com and at facebook.com/ladybrain. Coming up in the next bit, cold feet. Should you worry about them? We'll find out. We'll be right back.